Tim's Sweet Success of Chocolates. Tim was an ordinary 15-year-old boy living in a quaint little town nestled between rolling hills and bustling markets. His life revolved around school, hanging out with friends, and helping his father at their small chocolate shop, Sweet Indulgence. It was a cozy, family-owned business passed down through generations, famous for its assortment of handmade chocolates. Customers from near and far would come to savor their unique flavors, whether it was the rich, velvety dark chocolate, the smooth milk chocolate, or the tangy orange-infused ones. Tim's father, Mr. Benson, took pride in crafting every chocolate, but what he valued most was treating his customers with kindness and honesty. Tim had always admired his father's work ethic and commitment to fairness, but as he grew older, he started noticing things that made him uncomfortable. There were customers who seemed to take advantage of his father's generosity. They would haggle for lower prices, complain about quality just to get extra chocolates, or even attempt to shortchange him. Mr. Benson, being the kind-hearted man he was, rarely argued and often let these things slide. One particular day, Tim noticed a group of 3 men who often came to the shop. They were always friendly, but Tim had a bad feeling about them. The men would buy chocolates in bulk but seemed to always find some problem with the products, a slight imperfection in the shape, a flavor they didn't quite like, or simply something that would allow them to demand discounts or free samples. One afternoon, while Tim and his father were closing up the shop, Tim finally spoke up. "Dad, why do you let those guys get away with it? They're just taking advantage of you." His father, wiping the counter with a soft smile, said, "Tim, in business, sometimes it's better to avoid confrontation. We don't want to lose customers." "But Dad," Tim persisted, "they're not real customers if they're just cheating you. We work hard for what we sell, and they don't deserve special treatment." Mr. Benson sighed. "I know, son. I just don't want to make a scene. I trust that in the long run, honesty will pay off." Tim understood his father's values, but couldn't shake the feeling that something needed to be done. He was determined to protect the family business, not just because it was his father's pride, but because it was also a part of him. 1 week later, Mr. Benson had to travel out of town to procure new ingredients and packaging materials for their next batch of chocolates. This meant that Tim would be in charge of the shop, though Mr. Benson made arrangements for a neighbor to help if needed. Tim had been helping out in the shop for years and knew the ins and outs of the business, so he assured his father he could handle it. On the very first day, the same group of 3 men came into the shop. "Hey, kid, where's your old man?" "We've come for our usual haul," the ringleader said with a smirk. Tim forced a polite smile. "My father's away for the week, but I'm here to help. What can I get for you?" The men exchanged glances, clearly seeing an opportunity. They ordered the same bulk purchase as usual, but Tim could already sense what was coming next. Well, the chocolates aren't as good as last time," the second man complained as soon as he unwrapped a piece. "Maybe we should get a discount, eh?" Tim's heart raced, but he was prepared. "I'm sorry to hear that, but all the chocolates are made from the same high-quality ingredients. I double-checked everything myself." The men weren't pleased with Tim's calm response. "Come on, kid, don't make this harder than it needs to be. We've been regulars here for months. Your dad always gave us a deal." "That's true," Tim said, nodding. "You've been coming here often, but I also know you've always found some reason to complain. And every time, you got something extra for free. Today, I'm asking you to pay for what you take. No more, no less." The ringleader scowled. "You think you're smarter than us, huh? Just because your old man's not here doesn't mean you can get away with this." Tim stood his ground. "I'm not trying to get away with anything. We work hard to make these chocolates, and we charge a fair price. If you're not happy, you're free to take your business elsewhere." The men were taken aback by Tim's firmness. They had expected him to be easier to manipulate in his father's absence. After a few moments of glaring, they huffed and grumbled among themselves, but ended up paying the full price and leaving with their purchase. Tim felt a surge of pride as they walked out the door. He had stood up for the shop and for his father's hard work, but he knew this was only the beginning of his week-long test. As the days went on, Tim noticed more customers trying to pull similar tricks, complaining about minor details to get free chocolates or discounts. But Tim handled each one with calm confidence, refusing to be swayed by their attempts to deceive him. However, not every day was filled with confrontations. Tim also had regular customers who genuinely loved the chocolates and praised his father's craftsmanship. Some even complimented Tim on how well he was running the shop in his father's absence. The positive feedback fueled his determination to make the shop even more successful. Tim began experimenting with different ways to attract more customers. He rearranged the display cases to highlight their most popular chocolates, created small gift packages for customers to take home, and even offered a try-before-you-buy option, allowing customers to sample new flavors. He noticed that when people had the chance to taste the chocolates, they were more likely to make larger purchases. By the end of the week, business had picked up significantly. More customers came through the door, and sales were higher than usual. The day before his father was due to return, Tim found himself reflecting on the week. He had learned so much, not just about running a business, but about standing up for what was right. He had faced dishonest customers, introduced new ideas, and, most importantly, protected the integrity of the shop. He couldn't wait to tell his father about everything. But just as Tim was about to close the shop for the day, the same three men came back, this time looking angrier than ever. "Listen, kid," the ringleader growled, "we're not happy with what happened last time. We want compensation for those chocolates. They were stale, and we deserve a refund." Tim's stomach tightened. He knew they were lying, but this time, they seemed more aggressive. He took a deep breath and steadied himself. "I'm sorry to hear you didn't enjoy the chocolates, but as I told you before, they were made fresh, and I checked everything myself. I'm not giving you a refund." The men stepped closer, their voices rising. "You think you can just cheat us and get away with it?" Tim stood tall. "I'm not cheating anyone. But I won't be cheated either. If you have a real issue, I'll be happy to resolve it. Otherwise, I'll have to ask you to leave." The tension in the air was thick, and for a moment, Tim wasn't sure what would happen next. But then something unexpected occurred. One of the men, the quietest of the group, spoke up. "Enough, guys," he muttered. "The kid's right. We've been messing with his old man for too long." The ringleader turned on him. "What are you talking about?" "I'm done with it," the quiet man said, shaking his head. "It's just chocolate, man. We've been acting like jerks." The other two men stared at him, then looked back at Tim. The ringleader's face flushed with embarrassment. Without another word, the three men turned and left the shop. Tim exhaled in relief. He couldn't believe what had just happened. Not only had he stood up to them again, but he had actually gotten through to one of them. The next morning, Mr. Benson returned, his arms filled with boxes of ingredients and supplies. He greeted Tim with a warm smile, but his expression turned to one of surprise when he saw the ledger. "Tim, these numbers? You sold this much in 1 week?" Tim grinned. "Yeah, Dad. We had a good week." Mr. Benson sat down, flipping through the pages in disbelief. "Not just a good week. This is amazing. What did you do?" Tim explained everything, how he had rearranged the displays, promoted the shop online, and dealt with the dishonest customers. He told his father about the group of men and how he had refused to let them take advantage of the business anymore. Mr. Benson listened carefully, his eyes shining with pride. When Tim finished, his father reached across the table and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You've done more than just sell chocolates, Tim. You've protected our family's legacy. I'm proud of you." Tim smiled, feeling a warmth spread through him. "Thanks, Dad. I just wanted to make sure no one takes advantage of us anymore." Mr. Benson nodded. "And you did it with fairness, just like I always taught you."